This episode of Golf Smarter Mulligans is brought to you by DynamicGolfers.com. Have you started your daily mobility and flexibility program with Dynamic Golfers yet? If you signed up when I first started talking about it, then I'm sure you're starting to see some valuable results. Now, to my surprise and pleasure, I'm finding that these 15 to 20-minute videos are getting a bit more difficult each morning, and it's definitely pushing me to places that I could have only hoped to get to. So I encourage you to check them out for yourself, to follow their daily video routines and track your progress, because you will start seeing results within 4 weeks. For only $9.99 a month U.S., you can join golfers worldwide that make Dynamic Golfers part of their daily routine as well. There's even a custom landing page for my listeners at dynamicgolfers.com/golfsmarter. Go there now to get a 7-day free trial and 15% off your membership when you check out using the coupon code GolfSmarter. So please check them out today and let me know what you think. But don't forget, take advantage of their discount offer. Use the checkout code GolfSmarter when you sign up at dynamicgolfers.com/golfsmarter. Thank them very much for their interest in the Golf Smarter community and helping us become happier, better, more fluid, more flexible, and smarter golfers.
Welcome to Golf Smarter Mulligans, your second chance to gain insight and advice from the best instructors featured on the Golf Smarter podcast. Great golf instruction never gets old. Our interview library features hundreds of hours of game improvement conversations like this that are no longer available in any podcast app.
There's an old joke around the PGA Tour, enough about me, how do you really feel about me? Because, let me tell you something, if you're a golf pro, and I don't care how, and there's a lot of benevolent golf pros out in the world, and they're very nice people, they really are. But at the end of the day, your world's about you, because no one else is watching out for you. No, you're on your own, buddy. That's it. So you got to be able to manage yourself really well while you're on the road. Every decision you make, anybody that comes in contact with you, they better be on your program, because if they're not, you got to get them out of your life. That's it. I mean, you can have some little mild entertainment once in a while, but either they believe in Fred Green or John Grund, or they got to go someplace else. You don't have time for them. They either believe in your goals and your objectives and what you're trying to achieve in your life, and you need to surround yourself with people that are like-mindedness. That's what I tell my juniors all the time. It's really important. Surround yourself with people with like-mindedness, whether it's becoming a good student, whether it's becoming a good athlete, or it's becoming just a good person. That's the end of the deal. That's the secret.
With another interview from the archives of Golf Smarter, here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast.
It's good to be here.
we just finished. No, if you've been listening to the last episode, you know that this is a continuation of the last episode, and I wanted to just pick up right where we left off, and that is for those players who aren't PGA Tour players, for those players who don't start when they're 8 years old and have those teachers that are golf teachers. These are guys with families that are working, and they've fallen in love with golf, but they don't know. They know they need to get a teacher. They just don't know how to find a good teacher or the right teacher for them, and that's where I want to head with you right now.
First of all, quickly, find somebody you like seeing once a week or once every 2 weeks or once a month or whatever it's going to be. Find somebody you like personality-wise. That's important.
Okay.
Unless you're just unless you just want a little abuse, and maybe, that could be your thing too, but hopefully you find somebody that's got a personality that you find, you like being around. I don't say you have to love the person, but you need to respect them a little bit, respect their knowledge of the game, and feel that they're getting you on the right track. And,
what kind of questions should they ask?
To
figure out. Personality. Yes, I get.
I think it's more important what the pro's actually asking you. It's like going to see a doctor. How do I interview a doctor? A good doctor listens. That's what all good doctors do.
Right, and in a graduating class of 500 at medical school, the guy who is the last person to graduate from his class is still called
doctor.
Right. Doesn't mean he's a good doctor or not, but he's a doctor.
Well, and down the road, I'm not sure I want to overly draw the parallel between a somebody that's a medical doctor and a golf professional. They're so different different professions, but they do have their similarities. And sometimes a golf pro is as much a psychologist. I there was periods in my life where I've given lessons to people for 10, 12 years. So you get to know that person.
Sure.
You get to know about their family, about what's going on, their kids that are born, their grandchildren that are born. You're part of that person's life. That's an interesting thing. It's an interesting dynamic. So I think finding somebody that you like being around, and then find out if that person asks you the right questions, and if he's listening to you. If he cares. In today's world, does he send you occasional email asking you how you played and your member guest? That's important. I think, because if it's just a 30-minute lesson and you paid him and you walk away, okay, And if that's cool for you and you're getting better, I'm okay with that too. But you got to treat the whole person. Again, I bring this like I talked earlier. The golf game is about the whole person, not about the golf swing as much as we want to make it out to be. And I can talk mechanics till we come home. I can talk to you.
Yes, I know.
For a long, long time. Seriously, I really
and
can.
You know how much I love mechanics.
And right. But I think, some of the most interesting things I've ever read in my lifetime were said by Albert Einstein. And I don't understand physics very well, if at all, except for maybe how they apply to the golf swing a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You do.
I do. But certainly not in those terms. Interesting guy, huh?
Somewhat.
Right?
A little disheveled.
I had the opportunity to spend some time with a man named Albert Penzias. And I don't know if you know who he is.
You scared me. I thought you were going to say I spent some time with Albert Einstein.
No,
like,
I think I'm pretty sure it's Mr. I called him Mr. Penzias. I think his first name is Albert Penzias, but it may not be Albert's first name. But he was
Mr.
Yeah, and he was a Nobel Prize winner, and he won it for. He was on a team that nailed down the theory that basically supported the concept of the Big Bang Theory.
Wow!
Right, so. And he started out, interesting guy, just started out with doing some, is in the military, and he discovered why homing pigeons home. Just a curious guy, but a very interesting man, and very quiet. And my wife was kind of surprised because he never talks to anybody, and I don't know why he wanted to talk to me. And the reason why he did is we sit down in the back of his home in Stinson Beach, and we're out looking at the lagoon there, and it's just a beautiful lagoon, where the birds are. And I grew up, my father raised finch, and I raised racing pigeons as a kid, and so birds have always been fascinating. We had a cabin growing up, and I always loved birds. And I'm fortunate to be around golf courses, and see some just amazing birds. I'll tell my, wait, that's a woodfinch, honey. It's a what? that's a western scrub jay. It's a little different than the eastern scrub jay. And I just know these things, because I've always been fascinated. So we're talking. He says, well, my kids were sitting back here. My grandchildren, Mr. Penzias says, were in this lagoon for, 8 hours yesterday without ever coming out, or 7 hours or whatever it was there. How could they do that? He says, it's just amazing, He goes, I find that really fascinating. He didn't say how they could do that. I think he knew why they could do that, because they thoroughly enjoyed what they were doing. And I bring this back to a golf pro. Golf pro should thoroughly enjoy what he's doing.
Right.
And that comes out pretty quickly. He's enthusiastic about what he is doing. He's enthusiastic about who you are and what you have to bring to him as a person and as a game. And then, he needs to have the little bit of caginess of how do I teach this person? Because, another thing, not all learn the same way. Some people learn visually. Some people learn through hearing. Some people are more kinesthetic. They learn by feel, by touch. So there is a little bit of intuition there on the pro to figure this out from that person. That's why you want that interview. Tell me about yourself. What have you done? If a guy comes to you and says, I'm a musician. So what am I going to show him? A bunch of videos and how his golf game's going to get better? Probably not. I might talk to him a little bit about rhythm, about some timings, maybe things that he understands, If a person comes to me and says, well, I played quarterback at Boise State and then, did this. I say, oh, okay, now we got a different program, right?
Sure.
And we probably got some injuries, so let's talk about those too, right? So, but I mean, whatever, and so people learn differently. And so you have to have a professional maybe that's agile enough to be able to go. And sometimes they don't work, Sometimes you may find somebody, you take a lesson. And I think it's also okay to take lessons from several pros over a period of time.
Really?
Yeah. Why not?
That's not too confusing?
No, I don't think so.
What do you think of golf schools? Doing a 3-day intensive?
Great.
3 or 4 days? Yeah.
All for it.
Yeah.
All for it. Yeah, I really do. I mean,
if there's follow-up.
Well,
see, that's my problem with the golf schools. It's like they just strip you down to the bare nothing and then build you back up. And then after 3 days, you've got this great new golf swing. And 15 minutes later, you go to a golf course and you completely can't figure it out. And there's no one there to ask.
I'll tell you what.
Teach you go back.
That's true. But there's a lot of times I've been standing in the middle of nowhere, walking to my car, and I 3-putted the last hole. I bogeyed 17, lost the tournament by a shot, and I'm thinking, I'm pretty alone right now myself. That's part of golf. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
So deal with it. How do you deal with that? That's okay. It's all right. It's all right to fall down. You got to get back. You get back up. Good players get back up. Try the next day. That's what you do. That's how you get better at golf. You fail all the time at golf. That's the thing. You just do. I mean, if you ask Tiger how many good shots he hit in his last round, you might say 6 or 7. How many really good shots? Well, I only hit about 3 really good shots. Why'd you shoot? Well, I shot 67. Really? You only hit 3 really good shots? Yeah. Because, and this is what I want to talk, we talked about this earlier when we sat down and had lunch, is that, it's just a matter of connecting the dots. It's not personal. Golf is not really about pars and bogeys and double bogeys and birdies and eagles. It's really not. We want to make it out that because we want to experience these highs and these lows and get all this stuff. And the reality is just how I personally go out and connect my dots around the golf course.
Yeah, explain that a little more, what you mean by connecting the dots.
Let me just support this about different take lessons from different pros.
Okay.
I think it's okay at the end of the day if you start to formulate, because now you'll know. I mean, how many teachers does it take you to find that really good teacher in school? Mm-hmm. To know all of a sudden when you get that aha moment when you get that professor. I don't know who he was. For me, it was Hans Berwald, right? I ended up minoring in Japanese, politics. And Hans was a smart guy. I had a lot of teachers before him, and I said, wait a minute, this is the real deal. Mm. This guy lived in Japan, grew up in London, was educated in Hong Kong, spoke Chinese, spoke Japanese, spoke some other languages, and he was part of there in the Reformation of Japan at the end of World War II. And this guy was there, he lived it, he did it, and he understood it on a lot of different levels. And he understood, because I was a political science major. He walked the walk, and I had a lot of teachers before I met him, and a lot of had great qualities. But Hans was the right guy at the right time for me, and I really, education kind of shifted gears for me at that point. I was always fascinated by it, but played a lot of golf and did some other things. If it hadn't been for golf, I probably would have gone more that direction, I think. But so we all have that aha moment, but maybe you have some other instructors along the way. Okay, and maybe you meet the right instructor right out of the box.
How would you know?
And how would you know? But if you're getting better and you're meeting your goals and objectives, then that's good.
Then stay with it.
That's good. Yeah. But a lot of us are searchers by nature.
Don't try to make improvements quickly. Right.
A lot of us are searchers and wanderers, and as golf pros we see them because even where I teach now. Hey, did you get a lesson to Mr. Smith last week? Yeah, I gave him lessons last year. And he took lessons from the other pro the year before. Mm-hmm. And so I find it interesting when I find people like that because I find the real job is I haven't convinced them what the truth about golf is yet. There's some different truth levels to golf. The mechanics are pretty straightforward, really, at the end of the day. It's a question of how they're applied. And then, the learning capabilities, learning skill sets, those are a different thing. If a guy's still taking lessons from people to people, I'm finding that his scores aren't going down. My thing is, why aren't his scores going down? You know what? Because probably nobody's taken any time to take him out on the golf course and show him how to hit a chip or a pitch shot properly. Show him how to make the right decision with the right golf club. Who cares about golf swing? Which brings me back to the point about connecting the dots. Because that's really what golf's about. Golf's not when they invented the game of golf, there wasn't a par written on the scorecard over there in St. Andrews. It was 18 holes. And when the wind blew this way off the North Sea, it played this. And when the wind blew that, it played that. I mean, it was all relative. The only thing we know for sure, it was 18 holes because that's about what a time it took 18 shots of scotch, I think. So, and God bless them for that. But, I think, so they understood that the game was a game played outdoors, that it was subject to all sorts of travails from Mother Nature, from personal spirit, from everything else. And so they played it that way. They played it from end. They knew that it wasn't over till you put the hole in at the last putt. So it wasn't about my handicap, because that's an invention of modern times. It wasn't about my par or this or that. It was just how many shots did it take me there. And the rule of the day is to play the ball as it lies. That's it. And then you're done. And there's a journey in between there of all sorts of things that go on. And there's the beauty of the game, right? And so we've, added the things like pars and birdies and bogeys and stuff so we can have handicaps. So Fred and John can go out, if John's a +2 handicap and Fred's a 12 handicap, we can go out and compete for the day and still kind of have the same game and have fun doing that. So that brings me to the point, well, I made par in the last hole. I'm a really great person right now. But then I make triple on the next hole. Well, I'm not so good right now. And then we play this, we have this emotional battle all day long. And it becomes a lot more about ego than it really does about this personal journey around the golf course for the day. And about how I relate myself to my clubs, to that golf shot, to produce the best shot that I'm capable of producing in that moment. And that ultimately is the secret of the alchemy of producing good golf, is to be in those moments and do the best that you can with what you have to give in that moment. And that's and I bring it back to the athletes. That's why a lot of these athletes and these actors are attracted to the game now, I think, because they get that sort of relationship. That's how they learned how to play football. That's how they learned how to play basketball. That's how they learned how to play hockey. Because they, over periods of time, they took little steps to become that best person. They made those sacrifices along the way. And that's why CEOs of businesses are attracted to the game. Because they sacrificed at some point. They learned little bits of information, and they kept on applying them. And they got a new situation, a new problem to solve. Because golf is just about a series of problems that you solve. That's it. I'm faced with this shot right now. How much good information, if I'm a CEO, how much good information can I get from my staff? Usually that's just you on the golf course. So the staff is me. How much how far am I away from the pin? Where's the ball sitting? Is it above my feet, below my feet? Am I down grain on the grass? Is the grass coming into me? Is that pin sitting up? And if the pin's sitting up and it's late in the day and there's a wind blowing, guess what? The green's probably going to be firm because it's exposed to the wind. And these are things I learn over time, and I accumulate all this information. And this all happens in 45 seconds or whatever before I hit a golf shot, or a minute. Lee Trevino was the famous guy for talking and chatting. Believe me, his brain was all on that golf ball. He deflected, he chatted because he was nervous. He was the most shy guy in the world. He never talked to anybody in the PGA Tour outside of the golf course. Hell, he holed up in a hotel. He ate pizza with Herman there most of his life. And his closest friend of his life was Herman. He had dinner with only one guy in the PGA Tour in, 25 years, basically. Really?
Yeah, it was not even the guy you'd think. It was Dave Hill's brother. I can't think of Dave Hill's brother's. Great player, was playing the senior tour up until recently. I think he still plays a little bit. And that, for some reason, he and Trevino would spend some off-season time together, and they knew each other. But I'm just saying that's how you play better. Is that's one of the secrets here, is learning how to manage yourself around a golf course and not taking it personal. People ask me, why is Tiger the best player in the world? Tiger's the best player in the world because he lacks ego. What? He lacks ego?
Really?
Yeah. What?
Well, I mean, because, we've seen him get upset. We've seen him angry. But he's got this aloof character in interviews.
Now, let me clarify that. Tiger almost always hits the shot that he's capable of hitting. He very rarely hits a shot that he's not capable of playing.
And we do that all the time.
Correct.
All the time.
Yes.
I mean, it's like one of my favorite sayings is never follow a bad shot with a stupid shot.
Right.
But we do it all the time.
Right. And we're always...
And you're saying that is
you
not
don't see
part of
you don't
game.
see Tiger doing many Van de Veldes, right?
Yeah.
You just don't. You don't. And that's and
trying to remember.
Correct. It just doesn't happen. Now, he'll hit some bad shots.
Right.
But I can guarantee you can go back and drop a bag full of balls and probably hit 80% of them pretty dang good.
Yeah.
You know, and so he's able to.
It's not supreme confidence. It's not arrogance. It's
correct. It's just it's
no ego.
It's very tactical. He's a general at war. He's a golf warrior. You know, that's what people understand about golf pros. Golf pros are golf warriors. They're not golfers. Most people are golfers. A warrior is a different story. You can wake up at any moment, drop out of bed, and go shoot 68. I don't care if you're in the Maldives playing in some weird golf course with, with Bermuda grass that's way too long and crappy greens and 110-degree weather and you're eating weird food. You go out and shoot 68.
I'm going to make you tell me this story because right now, the show that we're doing right now, this is the premium version. So this is HBO versus, being on Fox.
Right.
So we could say whatever we want. So tell me the story of what it takes to be a golf professional on tour. Tell me the story of what it takes to be a golf professional on tour.
Again, I bring it back to the golf warrior story, which is, are parallel. That as a warrior, your job every day is to get up and do whatever your job is. It's defend your country, which fortunately we have a lot of men and women do for us right now. They're warriors. And they sacrifice, make humongous sacrifices. And as a golfer, that's what you do. I mean, your life. There's an old joke around the PGA Tour is, enough about me. How do you really feel about me? Because let me tell you something. If you're a golf pro, and I don't care how, and there's a lot of benevolent golf pros out in the world, and they're very nice people. They really are. But at the end of the day, your world's about you, because no one else is watching out for you. I don't have Mike Singletary figuring out where I got to be on a plane, what hotel I'm going to be staying at, right. and my trainer's going to be there to get me wrapped, and what plays we're going to go over, and in the heat of the moment he's going to call in a play, and we're all going to no, you're on your own, buddy. That's it. So you got to be able to manage yourself really well while you're on the road, and you got to be able to go out and so every decision you make, anybody that comes in contact with you, they better be on your program, because if they're not, you got to get them out of your life. That's it. I mean, you can have some little mild entertainment once in a while, but either they believe in Fred Green or John Grund, or they got to go someplace else. You don't have time for them. They either believe in your goals and your objectives and what you're trying to achieve in your life, and you need to surround yourself with people that are like-mindedness. That's what I tell my juniors all the time. It's really important. Surround yourself with people with like-mindedness, whether it's becoming a good student, whether it's becoming a good athlete, whether it's becoming just a good person. That's the end of the deal. That's a secret. So the warrior part of it is, I had a friend of mine spending some time at the Masters one year, and he ended up spending some time with Seve Ballesteros and another golf professional on the PGA Tour, whose name I won't mention at this time. But and my friend was there with them, and they were sitting in one of the residences at Augusta, and it came up. He was a young professional that had some success, and he said, "How do I remain successful at golf? How do I really be successful at golf?" And surprisingly, what came out of Seve's mouth was something that you wouldn't expect. The first one was you got to be able to eat anything, at any time, anywhere. So now we're talking about a guy that's playing in Europe back in the 80s, the late 70s, 80s, when travel was a little more difficult and things weren't quite as sleek and and probably weren't staying in didn't have homes all over the place and stuff. But still, you got to be able to eat different food, and you travel 300 miles and you're in a different cuisine. Here 300 miles is still Burger King, right? But in Europe may be different, but it's still relevant. Golf's become an international game, so there's still a little bit of relevance to that aspect of it. So you got to be able to eat at different times. You understand that you might be a person who wants to eat at 5 o'clock. Well, if you just jump on a plane and fly to Beijing, you got to be able to eat dinner. Maybe your breakfast time, but you got to be able to swallow down the pork chops or whatever it is you're eating, So eat whatever you can, and be smart about it. Don't eat just junk food. Try to modify it to the best of your ability, but you got to be flexible on the food thing here. Your stomach's got to be able to handle that. And then the other thing is you got to be able to sleep and eat. And that's a tough one. Now I was watching Lee Westwood just recently, and when he won his tournament, and he said. They call him half man. His joke on the tour, the guy asked him, "Well, how'd you sleep last night before you won this $1 million tournament today? You were leading." He goes, "Well, the joke on the European tour is I'm half man, half mattress." So I sleep fine. Gary Player was famous. One of my heroes is Gary Player, and that here's a very small, diminutive man that changed his physique, changed the way he perceived himself first, and then went out and changed his body to fit the job they needed to do, which was jumping on planes, flying out of Africa, and go winning in the United States. Now, that was somebody nobody was doing back in the 60s.
Sure.
And the 50s. Very few. There was a few guys that did it, but not many. So he was one of the first international golf stars, in my opinion, and did it in times that were pretty challenging. And so that sleeping anywhere, Gary Player was famous for being able to just sleep on a plane for 8 hours. Just gone. I actually watched him fall asleep waiting for a playoff in a tournament. It was in the 70s sometime. He was in a playoff. Maybe it was 80s or something. And he was in a playoff and just took a little nap for like 10 minutes, just right there after he signed his scorecard. A lot of guys are sitting there watching the play. What's he going to do? Am I going to be in the playoff or not? He figured, I need some rest, so he took a nap. Wow. So and the last thing was, which is a little risque here. Savvy mentioned that taking care of your physical needs was an important aspect of being a single guy and traveling. But his joke was not to do it too efficiently, otherwise you'll be bugged all week. So. Leave a little bit. I
think we could fill in the blanks here.
Maybe leave a little bit on the table there. So there, those are some things. But again, going back to the Warrior parable, it's not so much about golf swing a lot as we want to make it out to be. Like I said earlier, find a reason to get to the golf course, find a reason to compete, and learn from that competition, and understand that you got to dust yourself off, get back up, get back in the game, and go out and do it again, and figure out how it's going to work for you the next time. And, we're finding some interesting things, with health and fitness. We're finding some interesting guys that are having some really interesting careers much later at golf than we'd ever expect. Freddie Funk, what an amazing story, He's had some knee problems the last couple of years, but, later in life became a tremendous player. Lauren Roberts, what another great story of a guy after 45 winning a bunch of golf tournaments. Vijay Singh, the most winners ever over 40 times winning. That includes Sam Snead after 40. So this is pretty amazing stuff. Guys are learning that it's okay to fail. You just got to keep trying. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great lesson to learn for the average golfer too. You can always get better. And it depends what you want to sacrifice and what you want to do, and learn how to. It's not always that golf tip in the magazine. There's other things out there to get better at and to do. Just don't take it personal. Go out and connect the dots. And if you take 5 in that hole, that's fine. The next hole you might take 4. Always try to reduce a dot somewhere. My friend just recently played with Freddie Funk down at a private club down in Monterey. And he got done with after the round. And he's talking to some of the amateur golfers who had set him up to play golf at a very private club down there. And the amateur said, it was amazing. I played with Fred today. He shot 65 on these greens out here today, and they were just recently punched. And yet I outdrove him probably 3 or 4 times. And I'm a 10 handicap. It's not personal to Fred. If he hit a 260-yard drive, that's fine. If he had to hit 5-iron up in the green and the amateur he's playing with hitting 7-iron, okay. I'm not hurt about it. I just got to go up and make my 30-footer, make my 10-footer, get it up and down, go to the next hole, get it done. Just connect the dot.
Get it done.
And have fun doing it. Enjoy doing it. That's the thing. And enjoy, that'll keep you coming back if you enjoy the process. That's what I tell my kids that I teach younger kids. I said, learn how to love the process. That's what makes you better. Learning to love the process. My brother was a runner growing up, and I think I learned a little bit of that from him. He was very diligent in his training to long-distance running. And I learned that he just loved going out and swimming 300 laps in the pool. He would do that. He'd get up at 3 in the morning and go run. When it was nice and cool during the middle of summer, he'd run till 5 o'clock in the morning. He'd run for 2 hours. And then he'd run in the evening. Wow. To get ready, And that's what people do. You adapt to your situation. You do the best you can. And you find your skill sets which work for you. Maybe yours is practice. Maybe you're not a practicer. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're a guy that needs more time off. Whatever. You find it, but you got to find a reason to get there and compete. Mm-hmm. And I don't care if it's on the club level or if just the friend level. If you have buddies who always play on Thursdays, get that game, and you'll get better. And you'll go through periods where you don't. You have periods where I'm struggling this fall, and then if it bothers you, you'll do something about it. You'll take care of the elephant that's sleeping in the living room. You'll get rid of him. And if it's suddenly you're chipping bad, you'll find some reason to start chipping better. So anyway, those are just modalities of learning which you can improve upon. And I'm a big believer in keeping a little green notebook in your bag too, and keeping stats. I'm a big stats guy. The stats are more interesting than you think. That they're not all golf score. Golf score is always a reward. It's never a goal.
It's not a stat. The golf score is not a stat.
Well, correct. Well, technically, a stroke average it is. Your handicap and everything it is, but it's always a result of the things that you did before you hold out on the 18th hole.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's also a result of everything you did before you even got to the first tee.
Sure.
Okay. So preparation. That's the deal. And then after that, once I get there, how do I manage all that preparation in the moment and do that? And then the reward is my score or the tournament after 4 rounds. Those are all rewards. They're not goals. I mean, you can kind of tangibly say, I want to be the Pac-10 player of the year if I'm a girl or guy, and I want to do that. I want to win the Pac-10 championships, or I want to win the U.S. amateur. I want to win the state amateur. I want to win the club championship, right? But how do you really go about doing that? You got to break it down into moment, day by day. How do I manage my life to meet those goals and objectives? And that's what a pro can help you do, if you find the right pro.
Boy, I didn't want to spend 10 minutes on this, and I have a feeling we will, but the importance of that pro taking you out on the course as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's really massively important to go play with a pro. And I'm always saying, find somebody better to play with.
Yeah.
Get out of your own group. If the guys in front of you are 3 shots, play with them once a month, twice a month, once a year, twice a year, whatever you can get into. Go tee it up with the best guy at your club. And just be courteous. Just be etiquette. Most good players are very, very, very courteous. I mean, they understand players that don't play as well. Because you know what? They know what it takes. They know the sacrifice it takes to be the best player at their club, to be the best player in the state. They understand that. Believe me. You'd be surprised how understanding good players are of players that can't play very well.
Yeah.
I'm not very understanding of people that think they're better than they are and then won't apply themselves to get better. That I'm very short on. Personally, and you'll find as a teacher, I'll try to change that behavior a little bit if I can, if I see that's the real problem with the student.
I'll tell you, it's so funny because we share a barber, and that's how we met, right?
Right.
One of the more entertaining people on the face of the earth.
Correct.
He's one of the few people I've ever met that will tell you how good he is at golf.
Right.
He will go on and on telling you all his great shots, how good he is. Most people you ask, how are you? You ask Tiger, I'm okay. Well, I'm not that good. No, I'm good. I am really good. And I beat the crap out of that guy last week. Yeah. And I did it with this shot. And then I put it in his face. Right. I'm going to videotape him one day. Put him up on the website.
He's sheer entertainment, he's an unusual guy when it comes to that. Usually, my feeling at golf is taking a little lower road and being a little more humble, because boy, golf will deliver humble pie pretty quickly.
Absolutely. In all the times that we've had a chance to chat, you dropped one little tidbit here that I'm not going to let go, and I want to bring it up right now. If you don't mind sharing it with me, you competed in the U.S. Open?
I did. I actually played in one U.S. Open in 1987 here at the Olympic Club, and it was a fun, really interesting experience for me. I was a low qualifier here at the SF Club. And that was fun. I had the previous in '85 when they had qualifying at SF Club. I lost in a playoff to get into the Open, and I'd been first alternate 2 other times for a couple other Opens in those days. But I was able to play in the U.S. Open and had a pretty good golf tournament. I missed the cut by a shot or two, and I think I shot 149.
One of the things you said to me was you led.
I did. After about 6 holes. Late in the first round, I birdied a couple holes early, and I think I was tied with Bernard Longer.
I mean, there's guys.
I'm not much of a scoreboard guy. It's funny about that Open for me. I have probably never felt more relaxed in a golf tournament my whole life.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and I don't know. I've tried to look back on that, and I.
Were you really? Are you very comfortable on that golf course? Do you know the course really well?
Well, I played in the U.S. Amateur there in '81.
Okay.
But the golf course, and this is interesting. Most people probably don't understand that. It was the condition of the golf course was night and day. So it was like 2 different golf courses. And the location was the same. But the conditions were extremely... The fairways in the Open were fast and firm. And the rough was extremely high. And the greens were just lightning. I mean, the greens were so fast they were putting nitrogen... I think it's nitrogen, some sort of chemical on them to make them grow. because growing conditions are so good in the Bay Area for golf, especially in June. You get just a little bit of sunshine, and those are Poa greens. At least in those days, they were all Poa greens, and they burn out pretty quickly. People don't know what Poa is. It's Poa annual. It's a weed, actually. It's not really a grass that most greens in California are pretty predominantly used, especially in moderate climate weather. Hotter where Poa doesn't work very well. But so the greens were growing perfect. They were growing way too fast. I remember standing hitting a chip shot on 18 from the front of the green and watching the ball roll all the way back towards the bunker. Just hitting chip shots. So I played in the amateur there. It was pretty much set up like it was for everyday play in '81 when Nathaniel Crosby won in '81. And actually, that was a fun tournament for me too, playing that. I think I played with Paul Azinger his last amateur round of golf, which was kind of fun. Mm. He turned pro right after that. But yeah, I was relaxed, I think, because it was reward. That's how I looked at it. I'd spent a lot of years. That was 1987. I picked up a golf club in 19...
And it didn't matter, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's another thing, too.
You go in thinking, I'm going to win this thing?
I just felt...
I made it.
Well, I just got invited to the party.
Yeah.
And I really felt like I belonged there. I felt like these were guys I liked being around. These are people I had something in common with.
Neat.
And I like being around these guys like
Very
this.
Cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will say this. I was playing a practice round, and probably the most nervous I've ever been at golf. I was, what people may not understand this, when you play in a major championship like an Open or PGA Masters or whatever, there's usually when you sign in during the week, there's a little ceremony when you sign in. Usually sign a book and, maybe sign some official forms. In those days, I think they gave us cars for the week, so you're signing off on the car and stuff. And you get to sign up for your starting times. So if especially at Open, if you see Tiger Woods' name down at 7 o'clock on Sunday morning or on Tuesday morning, you just sign your name right next to it and you're playing with Tiger.
Wow.
Done deal.
Wow.
So, man up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
What'd you do?
I didn't do that, but I played with some of my I played at UCLA, so I was playing with some of my former college buddies, and I coached there for a little while too. And so Steve Pate, I'd scheduled a couple practice rounds with him, and so I'm out playing with Steve, and we were playing on the first hole. In those days, well, it still is. The back tee at the first hole at Olympic Club is really small. I mean, it's it's dining room size, know. And so we're standing there. I'm standing there waiting for Steve, and we've got, I don't know what time it was. It was like a Monday or something, or a Tuesday, and no Steve. And I'm getting, where the hell is he? I saw him up in the driving range a few minutes ago. Where is he? And all of a sudden, up walks Tom Watson. I go, so he's standing there, and we're all standing like he's 2 feet away, 3 feet away from me. How you doing? Good. Are you the time up now? I said, yeah, I'm the time up now. I'm waiting for Steve Pate. Oh, I know Steve, yeah. So he didn't even introduce himself to me, and I didn't introduce himself to him. So then
but you knew who he was.
I knew who he was.
He didn't know who you were, but you knew.
And then Tom Kite walks up, right? So these are like some of my idols growing up,
right?
I mean, these guys are a few years ahead. They're like 7, 8, 10 years ahead of me, maybe a few years more. And so these are guys that I kind of looked up to, right? And or did look up to, not kind of. And so now I got Kite standing there, and I've got Watson standing there, and then Trevino walks up. So now I'm thinking I may have to play with these two guys. If then the option may come up. They may invite me. They don't have to invite me because it's not their responsibility to invite me. Sure. I got my caddy standing there, so Steve doesn't. It's funny. I see Steve coming down the side of the hill there.
And you're going, go away, go back.
No, I was actually pretty comfortable with not playing with those guys. I mean, I probably should have been more excited about that opportunity. But at the time, I was thinking I really wasn't hitting it that well in practice rounds. I was kind of struggling a little bit, and I'm thinking, I should have been a little bit more gutty about that one. But I remember trying to hit that ball off the first tee, and that was probably the most nervous I was all week. Because I birdied 3 of the last 4 holes coming in. I was finally starting to get a feel for the golf course. And it was playing hard and fast, which I like because I was a low ball hitter, and I don't hit it pretty straight. And so I like that sort of format. But so it was a good experience for me. I wish I'd played some more Opens. I'd like to play in some Senior Opens. I haven't played very well the last few years, but I'd like to go about and play in a couple Senior Opens. That'd be fun. Yeah. Because it's a reward for me.
Sure.
I mean, I've spent, like I was beginning to say. I mean, I picked up a golf club probably in 1966, and so here I am playing in the U.S. Open in 1987. So I'd really been at it 21 years. Competitively, I'd been at it since probably 1972, so I'd been at it for 15 years competitively, pretty much nonstop. And, everything I did in my life was pretty much revolved around becoming a better golfer. Whether it's just trying to be a better person a better student so I could play more golf. Whatever, and traveling and staying in some really strange places under unusual circumstances. And they may not have been so fun. They seem a little bit more exotic and entertaining later in life. But when you're sitting in a hotel room in Fiji and it's raining for 2 days and you've played your 3,000th game of gin, and you've just finished the last. You've reread pre-internet. Yeah, you've reread your book for the fourth time. Yeah, right, exactly. So all those stuff, and everybody that's played the game for a long time has those stories. So they're interesting. But it was a reward for me, and I wish I could have played some more. Quite frankly.
Yeah, I bet. Now, most golfers and those listening, I'm sure, know of some of your work, but don't even know it's your work.
Oh yeah. That's the other little thing in my life. You got to make a living somewhere, because I was just basically a glorified AAA baseball player. As it relates to golf, I got called up a few times, like a U.S. Open here, occasional PGA Tour event.
You were at the show.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But then it was soon back to Bull Durham, which was interesting in itself. I played a lot of mini tour players that were really good. I played a lot of mini tour stuff with a lot of guys that were really good.
Share with everybody what it is that we know about you that we don't know that it's you.
Well, okay, I basically...
Did you invent this?
Nah, sort of. It was being done before me, the sprinkler marker on sprinkler heads.
Right. So if you're ever playing a golf course and you're trying to figure out what your distance is to the hole, and you look down and you're walking around looking for a sprinkler head because the distance
is on the sprinkler head. Right.
That's your company.
Could be. I have competitors, and when I started out,
they suck.
Well, I'll say we have our strong points at my company, Grund Guide. www.grundguide.com, by the way. But
3 W's.
3 W's, yeah.
And you know what? You probably don't even need to put www.
Yeah, probably Grund Guide.
Just Grund Guide, GURNDGUIDE.
Right, yeah. And so, I started, I got lucky. I'd always, again, always trying to skin the cat and find out what my strengths were. A lot of it was preparation for me. I learned through playing football and baseball, especially football. I had some guys that were really good coaches when I was a kid, and they taught me a lot about being ready. And they were military guys, both Marines, and taught me about being prepared and being ready to go out and play. And I found that one of my strengths was I couldn't overpower a golf course because I didn't hit it very far. I needed to understand that golf course and how I could apply my game to it. And one of the ways I could do that was walking off yardage, making green, keeping my charts on green depths, keeping my own stats on what I did on certain holes and how I'd play them and that sort of thing. So part of that involved some mapping, and I had a little bit of artistic skill to go with it. So I started out making yardage books when I was playing mini tours. I sold some of the books to some of the other players, and then by keeping those notes, I also found that, wait a minute, one of the guys that I did this for said, I'd like to put some yardages on my sprinkler heads. How could we do that? And because in those days they were gluing like little tags onto the heads in the mid 80s. And so I said, well, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so I started looking at it and saying, how would you image a sprinkler head? And so I started thinking about that, and I started doing it in different ways that had never been done before, and then continue doing it to this day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's just been so much fun having you here, and I have a sense that there are a lot of people with a lot of questions. So let me encourage you to go to golfsmarter.com and click on the Hey Fred button. And if you have any questions for John, I'm sure, we're almost neighbors. I'm sure we can get him back on the show, and maybe we can find a way to get him to do some video tips for us as well.
Okay.
On the website, because he's when I arrived here today, he was over on the putting green, and he did some magic for me over there, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's perfect for video. So we've got to figure out how we're going to be able to do this, get some video and stuff.
Yeah.
But we really appreciate you coming by
thanks for having
being
me
on the show. We didn't get to talk about any of these people on the driving range, unfortunately.
Well, it's not fair if they can't respond back. Come on now.
That's the whole point. John, thanks so much.
Thanks, Fred.